Dude, this sucks. I mean, I thought we'd be fighting more like animals and stuff by the time we got this powerful. Yeah, me too. We haven't fought a direwolf since like level 5. But at least you got good spells. My god gave me ass spells. I could talk to birds. Yeah, I mean, I got dope spells. I guess that's true. Still though, not many animals to, you know, fight here in the plane of fire. Am I right? Yeah. So you want to go? Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Seth. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming to the channel, for dropping those likes, hitting that subscribe button, doing all the things. Thank you very much, guys, and welcome to the video. So if you've watched my last couple of videos, you have seen that I'm kind of doing a series of videos that I like to call Fixing the PHB, which is basically a series of videos in which I am tackling some of the, you know, class and subclass features. Hello, plane. Which is basically a series in which I am tackling the PHB and all, like I said, a lot of classes and subclasses that in my play experience over the last several years have come up as either very situational and way too niche, or are just plain underpowered, or even sometimes just bad. Now, in this series of videos and in today's video, I am only tackling the classes and subclasses that are presented in the PHB. It would be, hello, ambulance? Busy day. If I tried to tackle all of the other source books, this video would be 2 hours long. So we're only doing the PHB today, and in this video, we are tackling the Cleric and the Druid. So let's go ahead and dive in. Hey, before we get started though, could you do me a favor and like go down and hit the like and subscribe button? Because, you know, new channel, everything helps. Thank you. All right, so first up on the agenda today, guys, is what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna explain a little bit about my reasoning. I'm gonna go through, talk about some of the specific features that I changed and talk about my reasoning behind that, and then I'll get into my actual fixes. So if you wanna skip to the part where you just see the goods, I'll leave chapters down in the thingy-mabob. All right, but first up on today's list, we have the Cleric. Now, I am gonna be the first to admit the Cleric as a class, as a whole, is awesome. I think it's undebatable that the Cleric is one of the strongest base classes that you have, and I honestly believe that no party is complete without a Cleric. However, we all know, I think, that all Cleric domains are not created equal. Starting off with what is arguably, and I think arguably, I mean definitively, the worst Cleric domain, which is Nature. The Nature Cleric is, in my opinion, the weakest of the domains because so many of its abilities, excepting maybe its 6th level feature, are so incredibly situational. Most of their domain spells are super niche and super situational, useful in a lot of RP situations maybe, but not that useful in combat and as far as mechanics go, in my opinion. Their Channel Divinity is also really, really niche and doesn't serve you, again, as you intimated maybe from my sort of sketch at the beginning, doesn't really serve you beyond the first few levels of play, because once you get past about level 5, beasts really stop becoming a challenge to a party. And also, again, sort of piggybacking off that, their highest level feature, which is an improvement basically to their base level Channel Divinity, is never almost going to be used at level 17, I think is when you get it, partially because it's just, again, way too situational. And at that tier of play, in tier 4, you're just not fighting beasts anymore. In the official published source books from Wizards of the Coast, the highest CR beast or plant creature that you get actually is CR 9. I think the highest CR beast is a T-Rex at 8. The highest plant creature is a CR 9 with a tree. But what this basically means is that your highest level feature as a Nature Cleric is effectively useless except in very specific scenarios, which probably won't come up. And finally, their best feature, which is the Dampen Elements feature, is, again, accomplishable with a first level spell, and that first level spell is better because it provides resistance for an entire round, whereas Dampen Elements only provides resistance against the single instance of that damage. While it is at will and requires no resources, which is what makes it, like I said, arguably their best feature, beyond of course their base level spell casting that they get from their class, I just don't think Dampen Elements is great. It's not, oh my god, this is amazing. So there is a lot to be addressed with the Nature Cleric, and we'll get into those changes. Next up, we have Trickery. Now, Trickery Domain Clerics, I think the RP and the flavor of them is awesome. I loved Jester, obviously, in Critical Role as an NPC, I think, or a PC rather. I think everybody did though, because Laura Bailey's amazing. And I had an NPC Trickster Domain Cleric in my adventure that the party absolutely hated because she was so effective and such a jerk to them. But that's also because I used a lot of my own features and my own homebrew features, and credit also goes to Kyle, my buddy, because a lot of this stuff is things that I worked on or sussed out with him, or just stole from him outright and have reprinted or otherwise published with his permission. Thank you, Kyle. But like I said, Trickery is awesome. Their domain spells are arguably one of the best domain spell lists in the game. I mean, Polymorph, Dimension Door, Major Image, I think, Mirror Image, all fantastic stuff for a cleric. But there's a couple of their features that leave something to be desired, and I think could use just slight tweaks and improvements to really push the Trickery Domain Cleric to where I want to see it as a player. I'm also going to be talking about the War Domain. Now, the War Domain as is, I actually really like, but their first level feature, War Priest, I don't particularly love. So I'm going to tweak it just a little bit to make it an improvement over what I think it is now, and make it so that, again, it just bumps it up that extra notch to be like, ooh, that is something that I definitely want to play. And then finally, Death Domain. Death Domain has some awesome features, but once again, I think there are some improvements that could be made. I think that the domain spells, there's a couple of tweaks that I've made to their domain spells that I think serve them better, and also a couple of feature changes that I really like that I think you will enjoy too. So we'll be talking about Death as well. That's it for the Cleric that we'll be talking about today, guys. Like I said, I'll show you the exact changes that I've made coming up here in a minute, but let's move on to the Druid to talk about the changes that I think should have happened with it. I think when you look at the PHB Druid, you see that one is the Moon Druid, which is, again, has all access to the incredible Druid spell list, all the control and everything you could want, in addition to having combat wild shape, you know, the ability to turn into elementals later, as well as a few other awesome features. And then you have the Land Druid, and the Land Druid is basically the Druid's version of the Wizard. They get natural recovery, much like arcane recovery. They get their circle spells, which are great, and a lot of times give them access to some spells that aren't on their list, which I think is fantastic. But there are just a few features to me with the Land Druid that are just so niche, or or kind of similar to the Nature Cleric, just don't come up in high levels of play, particularly their 14th level feature. So I'm not changing their circle spells. I think those are good as is. Of course, those are always free to play with, but the 6th level feature, Land Stride of the Druid, is something that I want to change. This feature, while fine, is once again very, very niche. The first part about ignoring non-magical difficult terrain is great. I mean, you can just run over non-magical difficult terrain. Also, moving through plants that present hazards is, again, good, but very niche. I think it's very campaign specific, which I tend to not love. I like features that are good across a variety and broad spectrum of campaigns, not one where it's like, okay, in order to make use of this all the time, you have to play this very specific kind of campaign. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to change this feature. So like I said, the first point about difficult terrain is great, but the other points about like having advantage on saving throws against plants that are intended to impede movement, plants is very, very specific, and basically this feature is only useful, the second portion of this feature is only useful if you're fighting another Druid who is casting very specific spells, which again, too niche for my taste. So I've reworked it. Next up, their feature, I think at level 10, is Nature's Ward. And once again, very niche and specific. The immunity to poison is great, and I think they also get disease as written, I don't remember, but the immunity to poison is great. However, the very specific can't be charmed or frightened by elementals and fae is, again, incredibly campaign specific and just not that great in my opinion. Druids are already good at wisdom saving throws, which tends to mean that they're going to be better at resisting those effects anyway. Druids are often also elves who have advantage on those saving throws. There's not many monsters in the monster manual that are elementals that can cast spells or have effects that charm. And, you know, fae use charm all the time, but again, very campaign specific and too niche for my taste. And finally, lastly for the Land Druid, I think at 14th level, they have Nature's Sanctuary. And I want to put this out, I love the flavor of this feature. I think it's awesome. Like a druid who can just kind of walk through the forest without being harmed by its native denizens is really, really cool. But for a high level feature, when you're looking at a mechanical perspective and how the game actually plays out, it's bad. It's just not that often that my players are fighting plants or beasts at that tier of play. Again, like my sketch introduced, I mean, my players are level 15 now, 16, they just leveled up, and they just fought a freaking demigod. So it just doesn't really work out that way in my experience, which means that your highest level feature as a land druid is purely a ribbon feature that's only good in RP, and that just ain't gonna fly with me. So we changed it. So that wraps up the discussion of sort of the features, my reasoning behind why I changed them. Now let's go ahead and dive into the computer and I will show you the changes that I've made. All right guys, so here we are in the home brewery. Let's go ahead and start over here with the Cleric of the Faith. Here it is. You may use your wisdom modifier in place of your intelligence modifier for any religion checks you make. Again, pretty simple. So let's move into the nature domain. So obviously I made some big changes to their spell list. Their spell list as is was fine, but so many of them were like really RP and again, very niche spells that don't have a ton of utility in how the game is played in my experience. So I went ahead and changed it. At first they get absorb elements in Longstrider. I gave them absorb elements because I did change their 6th level feature, which we'll get into, but pass without trace and summon beast. At 3rd level, or at 5th level rather, their 3rd level spells are Conjure Animals and Erupting Earth. I wanted to give them a cool like AoE at will damage spell, and I think Erupting Earth is great for that. At 7th level, Guardian of Nature and Blight, and finally at 9th, Wrath of Nature and Wall of Stone. These are just some of the more fun spells from the Druid spell list that I think would be really fun for the Nature Cleric to have. Again, this is all optional, you don't have to use any of this, but these are just spells that I would want to have if I was playing a Nature Cleric. Next up, we have 2 options actually for their channel divinity. So one is Command Animals and Plants, which basically this is a rework of their existing 2nd level feature. It just combines their 17th level feature with their existing channel divinity to make it so that when they use it, they get the benefits of being able to like verbally command the creatures that are charmed by them. So you take control. This would actually be useful, in my opinion, in a low-level tier 1 campaign that centers in a nature environment. So this is sort of the, again, very campaign-specific channel divinity that, and the way in which I'd want to see changed if I was playing an existing Nature Cleric. But the other one is, in my opinion, a little bit better. This is Summon Fauna. Starting at 2nd level, you can use your channel divinity to summon animals to your aid. You can expend 1 use of your channel divinity to summon a creature to your aid. This creature is a celestial spirit that takes the form of a beast with a challenge rating as high as your cleric level divided by 4, rounded up. That means that at level 1, you can summon a CR 1/8 creature. At level 2, you can summon a CR 1/4. So yeah, it's just, I mean, simple math, but again, rounded up. So that's the way that I wanted. And then at level 4, CR1, etc., etc. The creature disappears when it drops to 0 hit points or after 1 hour, or if you use this ability again to summon another creature. This basically guarantees that you can only use it once. I mean, at high levels, I don't want a cleric to use all 3 channel divinities or whatever to summon 3 giant crocodiles that just follow you around. But, you know, this basically makes it so you get 1 companion and that's it. The summoned creature is friendly to you and your companions. In combat, it shares your initiative, but takes its turn immediately after yours. You can use a bonus action on your turn to verbally command what the creature does, and it obeys the command that you issue to it. If you don't issue any commands, it will defend itself from hostile creatures, but otherwise takes no actions. So basically, you just, yeah, summon a creature, a buddy, for an hour that can help you and your friends out. I think it's pretty cool. At level 4, you can summon a giant eagle to carry your friends around. Just, again, lots of options here as far as I'm concerned. So one that I like better, and this was actually the creation of my friend Kyle, so I just stole it because I really liked it. I think it's a much better use of their channel divinity. Next, this is wholly original for me, but Primordial Ward. Again, I think the Dampen Elements is the best feature of the Nature Cleric, but I think this is better. Beginning at 6th level, you can protect yourself and others from nature's wrath. Whenever you or a creature you can see within 30 feet of you is subjected to a spell or effect that deals acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, or thunder damage, you may use your reaction to create a 30-foot radius ward of primordial power centered on yourself. Creatures within the warded area gain resistance to the triggering damage type until the start of your next turn. You may use this feature once and regain any expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. This, to me, is worthy of a 6th level feature. This is an anti-AoE. At 6th level, maybe it's a young red dragon's fire breath. At 17th level, maybe it's a meteor swarm. This, to me, will have its uses in all tiers of play. I gave this, I call it Primordial Ward. I have it as a spell as well that I gave to my druid. I think it's a 5th level spell, so it's very high level. But I gave it to them, and recently she saved the party's bacon when they got hit with a meteor swarm early combat by the demigod that they were fighting. She kept half the party from going down on turn 1, saved their asses. She felt very powerful, she loved it, and it was a lot of fun for me as a DM to watch those features get used. So I like it, and I think once between short rest is solid. That means you get 1 resistance to a dragon's breath or something like that. Again, I think once per short rest is a pretty solid use. And then finally, Natural Mastery, the 17th level cleric feature. At 17th level, choose 4 spells from the Druid spell list, 1 for each of the following levels, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. You add them to your list of domain spells. Like your other domain spells, they are always prepared and count as cleric spells for you. This is a 17th level feature for a cleric. It's great. I mean, the spells that are available to Druids 9th level, an always prepared shape change for a cleric, hell yeah. I mean, this honestly this feature by itself might make the nature cleric at high tiers of play one of the best nature clerics, or one of the best cleric domains, I should say. But I think it's an awesome feature. I love it. This was again a creation of my friend Kyle's, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm on board with that. Sounds great. So that's the nature cleric rework. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. Moving on to the trickery domain. First level, bonus proficiencies. At first level, you learn the minor illusion cantrip, counts as a cleric cantrip for you, and you also become proficient in 2 of your choice, the 2 of the following skills: deception, performance, sleight of hand, or stealth. Trickery domain, come on guys, like these are awesome. I love skills. I love giving skill proficiencies to my players as cool rewards in lieu of, you know, feats or leveling up sometimes. I love skills. I love skill challenges. I like how creatively players can use them, so I'm a big fan of this. Blessing of the Trickster, the big change there, no change except that you can do it to yourself. I always thought it was weird you couldn't do it to yourself. You can do it to yourself now. Invoke Duplicity. This feature, I toyed with this a lot, the idea of making this non-concentration, but I think after a discussion with Kyle, we both agreed that maybe that would be a little too powerful, especially considering you can summon more as you level up. But one thing we did add is you can take the help action as though you were in the illusion space, and if it's within 30 feet of you, you can use your action so that you and your duplicate both teleport, subtly swapping places. I think this is awesome. This was one of the features that hounded my players for the NPC Trickery Domain Cleric that I made, and they hated it but loved it all at the same time. It's an awesome feature, and I think it works great for Trickery Domain Clerics, so absolutely love it. And then Cloak of Shadows, basically, you can do it as a bonus action now, and you can use it a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. Basically, it's kind of like the hidden step from Furbolgs, and you just get more uses of it now than you did before. So I think, again, just awesome 6th level feature. I really like it. And then finally, at 8th level, Trickery Domain Clerics get the Blessed Strikes, which Trickery Domain Clerics aren't really built to be in melee. They don't get the weapon, they don't get the armor and weapon proficiencies that a lot of other, clerics that are intended to go into melee do, like War, Tempest, Death. So I think they should get potent spell casting. Also, the poison damage was terrible because most creatures are immune or resistant to poison once you get beyond, tier 1. So starting at 8th level, they can add their wisdom modifier to the damage they deal with cleric cantrips. Seemed to make sense to me. Now moving on to War Domain. Again, the only thing I changed from War Domain is the War Priest. Now, when you use your action to take the attack action or cast a spell, you can make a single weapon attack as a bonus action. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your Wisdom modifier, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. Now, this would make a War Priest dip a very, very tempting multi-class option for a lot of martial classes, which I think is cool. So it also just lets the War Priest kind of have more of that warrior flavor while still being a cleric. So they can, action Toll the Dead, bonus action make 1 weapon attack. I think it's awesome. It just widens the kit of the War Domain and makes them more of like a damage dealing cleric than many of the other domains, which I think is kind of the point. So that's the only change I made to War. And then finally, Death Domain. Just made some changes to their spell list. I swapped out, I think it's Ray of Sickness or something for Inflict Wounds. Swapped out Animate Dead for Revivify, because again, they have the power over life and death, and I just think it's kind of cool. And then swapped out, I think this is, I don't remember what was originally here, but Dance Macabre, because I just think it's a really cool spell for a Death Domain cleric to have. in a situation that they would be in. So I just really like that spell. I think it's really cool, has a lot of flavor, and allows a Death Domain cleric to like turn the tide. I mean, 5 corpses turning into skeletons that have your spellcasting ability modifier bonus to attack and damage rolls is pretty solid. And then the big change to Death Domain is Reaper and improved Reaper, extending that range from 5 to 30 feet. It makes the ward, or the Death Domain cleric rather, super powerful. I mean, twinned, it's basically twinned cantrips, and then twinned spell at 17th level for your 1st through 5th level spells, which might arguably be overpowered, but super freaking cool. And again, just an awesome thing for a Death cleric to have, in my opinion. So that's it for the cleric changes, guys. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think, and let's move on to the druid. So intuitive naturalist, like I was saying, you may use your wisdom modifier in place of your intelligence modifier for nature checks. Again, optional, do it if you want to, don't do it if you don't. And then this, just adding this 16th, they can turn into CR2 creature. Again, don't know why it wasn't there, but now it is. And Circle of the Land. So land stride. Starting at 6th level, moving through non-magical difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. You can also pass all this is the same. But in addition, you have advantage on saving throws against spells and magical effects that manipulate the elements of nature in order to impede movement, such as those created by the spells Entangle and Transmute Rock, or the effects of a green dragon's lair. I think this might get a little finicky, and it is a little bit subject to DM interpretation. The wording I may need to continue to work on, but the basic idea is that the druid has advantage on saving throws against any element of nature that would try to keep them from moving around. Any spell, any ability, any effect, anything that a monster can do that would shut down a druid from moving by manipulating nature against them, they have advantage on. Now, there are some abilities that don't have saves or spells, like plant growth, but I think that this opens this up a little bit and makes a more broader interpretation and removes the specific wording of plants that have been magically created and opens it up to just other abilities. You know, things that elementals can do. I mean, I would argue like this could let them move through different things that could work with like water and stone and different elements. Again, subject to DM interpretation. I intended it that way, but I really like it, and I think it makes this ability more useful than it would be otherwise, and opens it up to a broader variety of situations wherein they could make use of it. So that's why I like this change. Nature's Ward. Now, when you reach 10th level, you become more resilient to Nature's Fury. You become immune to poison and disease. Unchanged. But this part, in addition, each time you finish a short or long rest, you may choose one of the following damage types: acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. You gain resistance to that damage type until you finish your next rest. I just think that the druid should be able to select a specific thing. I mean, if you're out in the desert and you're a forest druid, you can sort of manipulate nature around you to protect you from its, you know, it's fucking power. And I think that that's really cool. Also, just, I mean, gaining resistance to an elemental damage type is huge for all sorts of enemies, all sorts of places, environmental effects. It's just a lot better, in my opinion, than the existing feature. And then finally, Nature's Fury. Beginning at 14th level, you have learned to channel the fury of nature through your spells. Whenever you cast a spell or summon a creature that deals acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, or thunder damage, your spells and summons ignore resistances to those damage types. The nature druid, the Circle of the Land druid rather, is the blaster of the druid class. You know, things like Call Lightning, Lightning Bolt, all the different spells that they can get through their domain spells, Wall of Fire. I just think that their elemental damage types should ignore resistances to those elements. Basically, once you get to a certain level, so many creatures have resistances. This allows the druid to cast spells that overcome those resistances because they're just so badass. So, those are the changes, you guys. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. I would love to hear it. And that wraps it up for today's video, you guys. Thank you so much for sticking around. Be sure to drop comments down below. Let me know which of these features you like the best. If you didn't like any, I would love to hear the community's feedback on some of these. Your thoughts on maybe counterpoints to my reasoning. I'm always open for lively discussion in the comments below, so please, I try to respond to every single comment that I get. So drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Also, make sure to do the things, right? Like, subscribe, trying to grow this channel. I would love to be able to, you know, get what the bullshit I have to say out to people, I guess. I don't know. I love this hobby, and I just want to improve the play experience for people who think like I do. So Anyway, like, subscribe, appreciate you very much. Thanks for joining me. Next video, we're diving into the fighter and the paladin. We're gonna skip over the monk because I've already done 2 videos on those. You can check those out here or whatever. But thank you guys again. We'll see you in the next one, and bye nerds.